So, have you ever wondered what somebody's talking about when they say they have progged their lock? Progging is just basically a term for progressive pinning. It's a little short term people use when they're typing. Just instead of saying progressive pinning, they say they're progging their lock. So, what a progressive pinning means is basically that you're going to take a lock that is gettable, and you're going to remove all of the pins except for maybe one or two, maybe three. In this example, I have removed two of the pins and I've left 4 pins in the lock. I've been trying so hard to get this Lockwood picked. It has 6 pins. It's only the Lockwood spools. Let's see if I can focus in there. The Lockwood spools and the tapered key pins. That's all that's in there. All 6 pins. Let's see. Here's the bitting of the key for those of you that like to see that. It's not that bad. There is a low cut on number 3, and then 4, 5, and 6 are a relatively high cut. That makes it difficult to pick. I'm assuming that is the problem because I've picked several Lockwoods. I have several. They all have these Lockwood spools in them. They're fun to pick. If you know how to pick them, you could pretty much pick any Lockwood that has them in it. But this one, I just cannot get picked. So I've taken it down to 4 pins, and I'm going to go ahead and try to pick it and get the hang of how to pick it with just 4 pins. And then once I can do it with 4 pins, I will go ahead and put the 5th pin in and try to learn it like that. Now, this is very helpful when you have pins you've never picked before. A type of security pin that you've never picked before. If you're just learning a certain one, it helps because you can actually take out all the pins except for one, and you can learn how that pin likes to be picked. How much tension you need. You can practice that. All kinds of things, and it narrows down the focus to just that one pin or 2 pins or however many you've left in the lock. But for this purpose, I know how to pick the Lockwood spools, so it's not about learning that specific pin. It's about learning how to get around that 3rd pin. I think that was my problem. So now that I've learned how to pick this with 4, I will keep practicing. Then I'm going to come back and put a 5th pin in it and see how I can pick it with 5. And I'll keep practicing that, and I will eventually put the 6th pin in. So stay tuned. I'm going to pop the 5th pin in here, and let's see if I can get this picked with 5. Okay, so I'm back. I've actually put the core inside of the lock body because I found that the feedback inside the lock body is very muted. So even though I can pick it in the vise with just the core, I can't pick it in the lock body. So I've been practicing that as well. So my suggestion, if you're going to prog something, is actually you're going to have to go ahead and put it back into whatever lock it came out of, and practice picking it that way instead of in a vise, just because of the feedback difference. Because I had this pinned all the way to 6 and was able to pick it in the vise very easily, put it back in the lock, and I couldn't do it. So I'm back down to 5 pins inside the lock body, which I can pick with a bit of trouble. Let me just show that the key actually works still. Okay, so that's working. And like I said, I practiced a few times with it inside of the actual lock. I've been able to do it, but move over here a little bit so I can get this to focus. But yeah, I've been able to do it, but it's a little bit of a battle still for me. And like I said, I'm really not 100% sure why that is, because in the meantime, I have went through my other Lockwoods again just to get the feel of all the pins in all the different locks and make sure that it wasn't a problem picking these spools. So I've been able to get through them. I got through them all, but this one here gives me some trouble. And I'm pretty sure it's just the tighter tolerances, and you know, this lock body's huge and it mutes a lot of the feedback, so it gives different feedback from when these pins are in another type of lock. So that's probably my issue. But progressive pinning the lock has helped me. I've actually had this pinned to 6 and got it open inside the lock body, but then I just started having trouble again when I wanted to try to video, so I ended up taking it back down. Back down to the 5. I'm pretty sure it's that trying to reach that 4th pin is what is giving me the most trouble. Because I think that's the highest, oh no, the 5th pin is the highest set in the lock. Pins 1 and 5. Okay, so there you have it, pinned with 5 pins. So let's go ahead and take this apart and put the 6th pin in it. Also, I have a couple pictures to show of another way that you can see what's going on inside of the lock and see how your pins are interacting inside of a lock. I'm going to go ahead and put it up while I'm doing this and you guys can see it. But as you can see, that is the pin interactions. That is what you're going to have to pick. Everything above the shear line is going to be above the shear line inside the lock. So you're not going to end up having to worry about that. But everything below, everything hidden there, is the part of the pins that you're going to have to pick. So that will also help you when you are trying to learn a lock. You really need to learn that lock. You need to learn the pins. Another picker, Picksmith, he says you just have to be the lock. You just have to study it so much and understand it so much. Understand how the pins are need to be picked, how they interact with the lock, how they interact with each other. You just need to really focus on finding out what's going on in that lock. And that's another way. You can always take it apart and, you know, pull the core, put all the pins in it, all the key pins in it. And then you just take out all of just make sure this key here is going to make sure the key pins are all correct. They are. And let's put this very first pin back in here. The spring down. You know, with other locks, you want to make sure that whatever pin you're putting it in the correct orientation. These are the same on both ends, so this one doesn't really matter. But when you have other types of pins, especially when you're doing a challenge lock, you want to make sure when you're putting it back together, you're putting all of the pins in the correct orientation. So you have to be careful of that also. Okay. Just screwing these little tiny screws back in on the back here. Now with these screws, when you first open up a Lockwood, these screws have Loctite all over them. And so they don't come out of the lock. So you may have to actually put your screwdriver on them and hit it with a little hammer or something heavy, a wrench, something. You just want to kind of put them on, like put it on like this, and take something heavy and just bang the end of it a couple times, and that will loosen the Loctite up and will allow you to remove these screws in the back. They are tough to remove if not when it's brand new. Once you get them out, it's fine. Okay, so you can see the key still works. So we did that part correctly. I'm going to slide this back on. Whoops. Slide this back on here. Put that back in and get this screw back in. But yeah, pin orientation is very important. Looking at the pins, having them sitting in the correct orientations and having them sitting there so you can see how they're going to interact. That's very important if you'd like to learn a specific lock. That's another thing that you should learn how to do, or at least try to do, is learn those. Learn what the pins are going to look like, how they're going to interact. The pin interactions are very important to learn, and it definitely helps you to see them, to see how they're interacting. Think of what you're going to have to do to get them. In the pictures I have of this one, you can see that pin numbers 1 and 3, they barely even, they barely even need picked. They're very low set, so there's really nothing that you have to pick on those. It's just a little bump, and they're pretty much set. So that is the issue with this lock, is if you hit that third pin while you're trying to set these high pins, you can easily overset that one. And that is what causes it to not even open. That's what's causing all my troubles, I believe, is I'm just oversetting that third pin, and that's my problem. But by progressively pinning, I've gotten to figure out how to get around that pin a little bit better. I've figured out what the problem was and try to learn how to pick the lock without having issues with that anymore. And the only thing you can do is practice. That's it. Practice, practice, practice. If you're lucky enough to have a guttable lock, you can definitely progressive pin it. It isn't cheating, because now if I ever run into another one of these locks, I'll pretty much be an expert on picking it after all this work. So I wouldn't need to progressive pin another one of this lock type. I've already done this one, so I wouldn't need to worry about, doing the progressive pinning on another one, unless it was something that I wanted to, ran into trouble with and needed to figure out. Then you can always do it again. But a lot of people learn the 1100, the American 1100 lock that way. They go through and progressive pin it, and Fish Picks has a great video on how he learned the 1100, and that was in his video, was progressive pinning. That's where I first even learned progressive pinning. Yeah, I believe I overset that third pin again. And now I do have all the pins in here, so it's going to be a minute until I can get this open, just because I'm trying to get the feel of it with all 6. Now your binding order is going to change once you throw in each pin also. So when you're learning to pick it with 2 pins and 3 pins, as soon as you put a 4th pin in, that's all going to change. The binding order is going to change, so you're not going to go back and do it the same way that you picked it with 3 pins. There's going to be a lot of changes every pin you put in. So it takes a while to learn. And sometimes you get lucky and the pin you put in isn't really that difficult and you figure it out right away, but then you add the next one and it's a nightmare. A lot of people complain about that, but this is how we learn. And once you've seen the pins inside of the side of the Bible, you understand a little bit better how to pick them, what kind of feedback you're going to look for. And this one's giving me a heck of a time now that I put 6 pins in it. So hopefully it won't take me too much longer to get it open. Okay, gonna start that over. I think I immediately overset number 3 and couldn't get it back down. Yes, I feel very close, but so far away to this open. And there we have it. Alright, so I clicked through all the pins very quickly and ended up getting it open. But that took me a few minutes. But I was progressive pinning it and I just added a pin, so actually that didn't take me as long as I thought it would. Especially since I didn't have this just out and picking it like that, because that is what makes it a lot easier. The feedback is a lot better. You can hear things better, just because of what it is here. So now it is a pain that I have to do this again and take these screws out. That's the only thing I don't like about these, but these are one of my favorite locks. The Lockwoods are my favorite. I've got a couple more I would like to video and explain a little bit better about the actual picking, what I'm feeling, that kind of thing. So I'll be doing another couple Lockwood videos, but for now, let's get these pins out and have a look at the final open of this Lockwood. I'm very excited to show you guys and have this one under my belt and get it over with. This is proof that you can pick a bunch of other locks, but if you have, different bitting or different tolerances or just a different lock altogether of that same, the same brand of lock, just a different lock, it can be tricky and you can run into problems picking it. So you could be as experienced as you'd like on some locks, but some of them are just a pain, and you need to implement this technique in order to figure them out. I'm just really excited to show this one off. This was This was a gift from a fellow picker named Adapt. Beautiful lock. This one has now become my favorite, and I can pick it, which makes it even better. But let's get a close-up of these spools. They are gorgeous. They are so fun to pick. You can see they gave me a heck of a time, and I had to really focus to learn them. They also have the tapered key pins, which makes that a little bit harder as well. Make sure I'm getting some light on this. But yeah, there they are. They are gorgeous. So that was the Lockwood 356 S63. It is a gorgeous lock. Now my favorite lock, and that is progressive pinning, or progging your lock. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, but it's worth it if you really want to learn a specific lock. It's worth it because it really helps you. I hope this video helped somebody. Any of you guys that had questions about progressive pinning, or how, what progging means and all that stuff. So I hope my video helped. If you do like my videos, you can hit the subscribe button, and the bell will notify you of when I put out a new video. Thank you guys for being patient and watching the whole thing, and have a great night.